Ladies and gentlemen, on a Monday evening, it has been far too long, and I am very happy to be here with a great panel. We're going to introduce them all. We're going to start with the man, the myth, the legend that has graced us with his time this evening. If you don't know about who I'm about to introduce, you haven't been keeping up with college football recruiting. And we're going to talk about Hayes Fawcett and his experiences. Hayes, happy you're in here.
Man, Ty, it's been a long time coming. I appreciate y'all for having me on the show and looking forward to a great discussion with y'all.
Man, can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here. Right above him is the one, the only Coach Sean. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Blessed to be here. Very appreciative and ready to talk some ball.
As always, Coach. As always, Coach Jay, how you doing?
Oh man, dude, it's good. It's good to be back, man. I haven't been on here in a long time, man. So great to be here with the panel and crew, and yeah, I'm ready to talk some ball. Get right back into it.
You know, it's funny, Jay. I looked the last time we did a stream over here because we've been doing content so many other places.
Right.
Was January 9th. And if you remember, we were on that Tuesday evening after the national championship. And I had just got done saying like, oh, I just got back from Virginia. Y'all aren't going to see me for a week. And then the next day, Nick Saban made sure that I wasn't going anywhere. I was going to be working more than ever because he decided to grace us with his retirement. Mm-hmm. And speaking of someone who may have been a little bit happy in a roundabout way to see the GOAT go, the man down at the bottom, someone who I've been lucky to do content with for a while. If you guys aren't aware of his channel, sincerely, you are missing out. Some of the more high quality college football content on the platform, videos I have referenced for years now. Nino of Nino's Corner. Nino, how you doing this evening?
I'm great, man. How you doing?
Good, good. Watch out. You might put your eye out with that right there. You might put your eye out with that right there. Well, gentlemen, it has been an action-packed off-season, if we can call it that at this point. And I'm sure Hayes will tell us at this point there is no off-season. So I first wanted to start off with winners and losers of the transfer portal. Hayes, I want to start with you. I want you to tell me who caught your eye in the transfer portal? And then, there was a lot of expectations for the spring transfer portal window. Did those expectations, did they meet? Did they exceed? Was it a little bit quieter than you expected? Talk to us from your perspective, because you know better than anybody in the industry the ins and outs of recruiting and the transfer portal. So I got to hear your analysis on this.
Man, so to answer, the latter question about the spring portal. Honestly, I wasn't really expecting too much. In the years past, we've seen a few big names here and there enter the portal in the spring, and we kind of, I guess, got a big preview to make a lot of people think that the spring window would be crazy with the whole Caden Proctor saga. However, looking back at it, there wasn't many big names that entered. I mean, you had Cormani McClain, former, On3 industry #1 cornerback. You had Jacoby Matthews. I'm drawing a blank, but I mean, really comparing it to the winter window, I mean, you had tons of big time names entering the portal, and we just didn't really see that too much in the spring. And I think that was kind of not really a shock, in my opinion.
See, I don't know if you ever saw this, Hayes. I know I think I told you that I had something planned whenever we were talking, right? I and Coach Jay here, we made a little bit of a fool of ourselves, expecting for this portal to be big. I dressed up as Grandalf, the transfer portal wizard, just because copyright purposes after the documentaries of Lord of the Rings, right? I couldn't come on there as Gandalf. He has a big head now, kind of hard to get a hold of. So I dressed up as Grandalf, and he dressed up as Jance Shiesty. And we were sitting there opening day of the portal, and we were expecting fireworks. We were expecting everything, and it just didn't kind of come to fruition. Now, Coach Sean, were you surprised by the lack of movement? Were you not surprised? Because the spring window, it is a super interesting one.
Yeah, I was. I thought it was going to be a little bit more movement than that. It was actually completely different than I thought it was. you know, when you look around the college football landscape and you really see some of the kids who were supposedly going to enter the portal, a lot of them stayed at their respective schools. So I was very, very, very surprised about that. But if I had to pick a winner, if you're asking me for a winner, just me personally, I understand Ole Miss, but I got to go with Oregon. When you see what Oregon done, you know, with Evan Stewart and Dante Moore and Jabbar Muhammad and the young man, the defensive lineman that just got from Houston, you know, 2 quarterbacks and Dylan Gabriel. I think the movement with both portals, I think Oregon is, to me, the clear-cut winner. Those guys really added some kids for need and really bolstered their roster for a long football season.
Yeah, tough to argue with what Oregon did. Plus, Peyton Woodyard on the spring portion. I mean, that's a big one. Jance, you and I, like I said, we made a fool of ourselves.
Mhm.
It was a great time. I regret nothing, right? Except that beard was itchy. Let me tell y'all what, I was
Cut the ski
uncomfortable.
mask. I'm 4 hours, man, sweating my ass off in that ski mask, man. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel good at all.
The hat wouldn't stay up. I mean, you know, the hat needed Cialis. It
Oh
was a
my
whole
gosh,
thing.
yeah.
It was a really unfortunate time. But Jance, talk to me, man. What were your expectations? Who were some winners? Who were some losers in your mind?
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought it was gonna be buzzing. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought it was gonna be buzzing, and mainly because this is the more selfish part. I thought Bama was gonna be an absolute killer in the transfer portal. But at the same time, though, it's like when everything, you know, all the smoke, you know, clears up, it makes sense. I mean, for the most part, the winter portal, it was designed, you know, to be more chaos, right? You look at, you know, coaches are leaving, administrators are leaving, right? Positional guys are leaving, right? There's so much chaos going around that a player is simply, you know, they don't know what the heck is going on, right? You got players entering the NFL draft, you know, it's complete and utter chaos. And so for a lot of movement to happen during the winter, it would make a lot more sense. The spring portal, though, it's a different story, right? Coaches aren't being fired. Coaches aren't going to different locations at this point of the season, right? It's not a lot of movement, right? The only thing that's probably going to happen is to see where a player stands, right? Where do they stand? Do they have a chance to compete? Maybe not for spring. It doesn't even have to be spring, but do they have a chance to compete for the fall job, right? Maybe they're being moved to a different position that they didn't like. Right. Or maybe they got to know a new coach, or maybe they don't, you know, the relationship between their old coach just isn't good. And so they enter the portal that way. Right. There's a lot of other, you know, different factors. But for the most part, winter was meant to be more chaotic than the spring portal was. So that's kind of something that I should have definitely acknowledged. But some winners that I really liked. Again, I think Coach Sean hit it right in the head. Oregon was the biggest winner out of them all. You got to give them a lot of credit for them to fill the quarterback position by getting by getting Dylan Gabriel. You got Dante Moore, Evan Stewart, who's, you know, again, you lose Troy Franklin. You can now you literally can replace that with him and Tez. You know, they really address a lot of huge important needs. I would probably have to go with Miami, though, too. I really like Miami. You know, getting Damian Martinez. They got Cam Ward, who was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They filled some holes on both sides of the trenches with the offensive line and the defensive line. So you got to give Mario Cristobal a lot of credit, because, you know, you add a top 4, top 5 recruiting class to add with the transfer portal. That's typically how you do this, right? You don't just go all in the transfer portal with having like low recruiting rankings. History has shown us that is not that's a terrible combination, right? That is meant, you know, to be disastrous. But if you can have great recruiting classes, then you can stack them off with those missing needs. Then, of course, you know, that's history has shown us. Florida State last year has shown us that, yeah, you can be extremely successful. And then I would probably have to say Texas. I'm going to have to throw in Texas in there as well, because, you know, I mean, getting Williams was big. I mean, not just getting Williams, but you steal him from Oklahoma. That's funny. That was very funny. I'm not gonna lie to you. And Chris, if you're watching, brother, I don't feel bad for you at all. I don't. But no, you got him, you got Isaiah Bond, right? You addressed other needs elsewhere to add on top with great recruiting classes. That's awesome. That's very, very awesome for Texas, what they were able to kind of do to the table. So some of my winners about it, but yeah, the biggest one by far would probably be Oregon.
Well, it was Jermaine Lowell that they flipped. OU still got Dominic Williams, which still, listen, I talk about this all the time. Whenever you have bitter rivals going after the same prospect, I'm already there. right? I already think that's fascinating. Texas, Oklahoma is easily at the top of that, but that's because I literally grew up on the Red River. Like 4th of July, I was on the Red River popping fireworks, doing, redneck stuff up there, having a lot of fun. And so I understand that rivalry very well. Passing it down to the man, Nino. Talk to me, man. Your Longhorns did some good work in the portal. Who do you have as some winners in the portal? Who do you have as some losers?
Yeah, man. Texas, of course, like losing, Mitchell and also Worthy. People, we're honestly just thinking who's going to take those guys' spots, right? So Texas goes and gets Bond. They get, Golden also, and then, also Bolden as well. And then getting Knoblack also. Getting Knoblack from Bama was huge because we lose, Sanders as well. So I thought that they cleaned up on the offensive side of the ball, also, man, on the defense side of the ball too, on the line as well. Now, Oregon cleaned up. Like, let's not like be like, just like honestly stupid about this. Oregon cleaned up. I like their portal. I like Ole Miss as well. And don't forget about Bama, man. Bama did really well. Bama lost a lot of pieces, but Caitlin brought in a lot of pieces, like getting some guys for the line, getting like a brand new wide receiver as well, man. So look, man, but Texas all the way, man. Hook 'em.
Man, happy to see the guy, Jake Merrill, in the house. So
What
Jake,
up?
we're talking winners and losers in the transfer portal. I want to hear from you, man, before I give my 2 cents. Who do you think won in the transfer portal? Who impressed you? And who did you see like, man, y'all needed to do more?
Oh, geez. I mean, there's a number of teams we could state right now, but let me first say what's up to everybody, man. It's been a minute since I've been on. Hey, what's going on, man? Coach Sean, Coach Jay, Ty, what's going
up,
on?
Jake?
And Sarah, nice to meet you. I'm Jake Merrill.
Nino.
What's going on, my friend? What's going on? No, I'm happy to be here, man. It's been a second and finally kind of getting some setup and going to rejoin the team. So I'm excited. But I think if we look at that transfer portal right now, I love, obviously, Oregon right now with the way they played that game, who they grabbed, from Alabama. They look really good. I think Texas a little bit was on the move, but if we're talking spring in general, you even look at Miami. I'm going to be honest. I like what Washington did. As you guys know, like Washington that's where, that there's a little bit of love there for me. That's where I played, right? So, but I like what Washington did and what Jet Fish did. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, the guy, you look at what he had to overcome, and he did a really good job. Pulled some dudes from Miami, right? Pull some offensive linemen in from SMU. That guy's a beast. Yeah, hey, great to see you too, Adam. I see you up there, man. What's up? But yeah, so I'm excited about that. I think if I look at it too, even though everyone's going to hate on what Colorado did, I do think Colorado did a good job.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Everybody's hating on Colorado because of the way they went about, maybe how Dion went about his business necessarily. There's, in the end of the day, this transfer portal, the craziness of it, it wasn't there, right? When I played, there was no transfer portal. For guys in here who played or come up from like my class, like 2006, 2010, right? No transfer portal. It didn't exist. So now that these guys have the option to flip-flop, I mean, look at all the freshmen, right? You come in, I mean, you look at Peyton Woodyard, right? Because I just want to go. That's probably one of the most significant names in this transfer portal from a freshman standpoint. Dude's a true freshman. He gets there. He doesn't like spring ball. It was a little rough or whatever it was, or maybe he was missing home, right? Which I have no hard feelings towards him. I understand it. I get he's a West Coast dude coming to the middle of, to Alabama where he's not used to. I remember moving to Alabama when I was from Washington. It's different, right? Like it's all different. I get it. But for him to bounce after being a freshman, you haven't even played like a full season. You haven't even gone through fall ball yet. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's so many things. But if I really look at it, I like what Oregon did. I like what Washington did. I mean, I like what Miami did. I think Miami did a good job. I think what Colorado did was good. Those would be my teams I really respect. Ole Miss obviously is doing – they've been doing their thing in the transfer portal like nonstop, as we all know, right? I think a lot of people are going to say Alabama missed on the spring portal.
No, they did good.
Yeah.
They did good.
Yeah. They did really good.
They did good. I respect the heck out of what they did. And you know what? It's funny, and everyone might hate me for this from, the Bama football on YouTube aspect, just because I'm speaking about Auburn. But I will say Hugh Freeze just made a really good point in an article I read. He said, we do background checks on these dudes. Like, how many coaches are calling other coaches to figure out about the dude? It doesn't, he feels like it doesn't happen enough. I don't know. That's a smart way of thinking, man. Right? Like, that would be a way to go. I mean, yeah, you only have a certain amount of time, but you're trying to add value, right? What Alabama did in that perspective, I think they added value for the limited spots they had. They added exactly what they needed. So, that's where I'm at.
And before I give my take, Hayes, I wanted to hear from you. Who really impressed you in the transfer portal whenever you went into this, a team that had needs and a team that was able to successfully navigate, whether that was retaining their roster or getting some really key additions?
Man, the team, like y'all already said, that really stood out to me was Oregon. I mean, you look what they did in the winter window and then turn around, getting additions like Derek Horman from Michigan State and Peyton Woodyard in the spring cycle. I don't think there was a team that, necessarily did a better job than Oregon this portal cycle.
Yeah, tough to argue at that one. So when I look at this, I think y'all have hit the nail on the head. I do think whenever I look at some teams that were able to successfully address needs, you talk Texas, they got some needs. Oklahoma, man, listen, they have to replace their offensive line. They have to replace a lot of offensive linemen. They get one of the highest graded centers in the nation from SMU, and then they get Dominic Williams. And from a defensive standpoint, listen, I love the guys they have that are freshmen. I think Jackson is going to be a dude, right? Like I think is probably a player I'm as excited about as anybody in the nation is Jaden Jackson. David Stone, great addition, but getting in Dominic Williams, someone who knows what it takes, how to succeed every single day at a college football level. Listen, these guys, David Stone, Jaden Jackson, I don't doubt that they're going to be fantastic football players. I've said it myself, so it'd be foolish for me to back away from that. But while they're learning the defense, they're still learning how to be a college kid, right? Like Dominic Williams knows how to do that. So I thought that addition was great. I thought Alabama, listen, it was a balancing act, right? I think if you're Kalen DeBoer, you're in a situation where you're the new guy on the block, the team committed to you. So I think there was this aspect, and maybe I'm wrong, this is just me giving my opinion. I think a lot of people thought Bama would do more work on the defensive backside, but we also have to remember, as I've dubbed it, Nick Saban's parting gift was 3 5-star true freshman cornerbacks. Mbakwe, Zabian Brown, Zay Mincy. Those guys committed to Kalen DeBoer after Saban left, and I think DeBoer in some ways was letting the team know, hey, I'm not going to take a haul in the transfer portal. We're going to get some needs, but I'm committing to y'all like y'all committed to me. I think Miami, y'all, Cam Ward is a huge addition up there. You guys hit the nail on the head with Oregon. How insane is it that you pull? Let's round table this before I get into my losers. How insane is it that you get Dylan Gabriel and then you turn around and pull Dante Moore?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Like that's awesome. Hayes, were you surprised when you saw that they were able to get 2 top quarterback additions? I mean, if you're an Oregon fan, listen, hats off to you. I'm excited for you. But what was your thoughts when you saw them pull 2 huge quarterback wins in the same cycle?
Man, I was extremely shocked. I mean, especially with Dante Moore, coming from UCLA, getting some playing time as a true freshman. I was shocked that he didn't go somewhere to where he could just play right away, because obviously, he had the time. I guess you could call 1 year a little bit of experience. But I like his decision to go to Oregon, sit behind a veteran in Dylan Gabriel, develop another year, get to learn the playbook so he can be ready for next year. I mean, on top of that, not only did they get both those quarterbacks, I mean, they got Evan Stewart, they got the number 1 cornerback in the portal in Jabbar Muhammad. I mean, looking at this class, it's insane.
And they're making their run in the Big Ten. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, I know that the college football landscape is shifting. We're all getting used to it. But holy cow. One thing I do want to give a shout out to Brinsky of the Sharpshooters podcast. Brinsky makes phenomenal content, a regular here on the channel. after you're done here, guys, be sure to go subscribe to his channel. He does great stuff. Yeah. And Brinsky, you know we love you over here, my man. Happy you're in here. Happy you're supporting as always. That's my guy. So I'm going to kind of talk about some of the teams that, quite frankly, whether it's their fault or not, lost in the transfer portal, right? Now, the first one I have, gentlemen, I'm interested in hearing all of your takes on after I give it, because I don't know if I'd qualify them as a loser, but it's a team, I'll put it like this, it left a little something to be desired, right? I won't say it was a loser, but it was a left, and that's LSU, right? Because they've been hot on the trail after several defensive linemen, probably their biggest need, and they haven't hit on Dominic Williams. They didn't hit on several other guys. Now, that being said, it's LSU. I kind of expect LSU to figure it out. They get in Bo Davis. They get in Corey Raymond. I mean, they've made some fantastic coaching hires. That's why I can't just say that they lost in the transfer portal, but I will say I think their spring portion in particular left a little bit to be desired, right? Interested in seeing them. Now, I think one team that nobody's talked about that, I mean, I feel sorry for them is Oregon State. Losing their elite running back to Miami. I mean, that sucks. But gentlemen, y'all know I got to do it. And this one's wild because they always recruit well. The head coach can coach his tail off. But sitting on your hands in this day and age in college football, it's not going to work. Clemson didn't take any additions. Andrew Makuba down there in Texas now, where he's from. And that guy, Nino, listen.
I know.
Y'all got a monster in him. Toriano Pride is now with Missouri. Now, I am curious, Tony Mitchell in the transfer portal. We do know that Clemson was involved in his process, right? Will they make a move there? I think conventional wisdom probably says no. If they haven't been making moves, they probably won't start now. And listen, I get it. I understand Dabo's philosophy. I think in a perfect world, we all understand Dabo's philosophy. Boomer says Ty sits on no one's hands. I do not sit on anybody's hands. I sit on my hands, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I look at this, guys, and I'm like, I understand, Dabo, you don't like the transfer portal. I get that. And I think you're well placed, right? But if you're sitting there fighting change, it's like trying to stop a moving freight train. It's not going to work, right? Like, this is bigger than you. This is every college football coach is going through this, and it is now your job to be as successful as possible. And the thing that's crazy, guys, is Clemson's still going to be a darn good team.
Yeah.
They're still going to be good. So you guys gave me some winners. I want to hear now from you who didn't do enough, and we'll just go straight down the line. We know Hayes is a positive guy. He's always going to talk to us about who did well. So that's why I gave you multiple different options so I can be the bad guy. I'll be the villain on this stream. Coach Sean, then we'll go to Coach Jay, Merrill, and on to Nino.
For me, when you're talking about losers, it has to start with probably Michigan State. These guys lost a gang of people. They lost Harmon. They lost Barrow Jr. They lost so many different people. It didn't make no sense. It seemed like everybody took a chance to poach off of Michigan State. They had some really, really talented players on that team. And it looks like every one of them has looked to leave that program. So I would have to start with Michigan State. There's some other teams that had some key losses. But for me, when you look at the structure and you look at the depth and you look at the amount of losses, it doesn't go as far as Michigan State to me.
Yeah, hard to argue with that one for sure. Coach Jay.
Well, I think, Ty, you hit it right in the head with Clemson. They didn't even make the. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. Dabo Swinney is old school, right? We all know his old school mentality, and there probably were players that he had an eye on, right? Did his homework, saw that was the best possible value. Maybe try to go after him, and maybe just didn't really spend that much time, or maybe that player wasn't interested. We don't know, but. It's hard to say that he didn't really play a factor, because if he didn't, then he deserves to be fired. Because that just shows that he's not adapting. And you know what? That's Les Miles. That's what got Les Miles fired. national champion, built one of the, well, didn't build it. Nick Saban built it, but he kind of helped take it to another level during those years, right? Made DBU in a way, hired some phenomenal coaches. And then, but what happened? All of a sudden, that old school mentality, right? In the pistol with that pistol and shoot. I mean, that old school mentality got him killed. Yeah. And so he got fired because of stubborn ways. And so that's what I'm looking right now with Dabo Swinney. I'm looking at a coach that's stubborn. The offense, let's be honest, hasn't been elite since Trevor Lawrence. Their mentality from a recruiting and transfer standpoint, it's not surviving in this day and age. And then their NIL and then again, I'm not going to get that much into their NIL, but it's not a good look for Clemson. It's not a good look for Dabo Swinney. And I feel bad for Clemson because they're in a very, very like really, really bad situation right now. And because Dabo Swinney, he has brought success. Ironically, to former Alabama alumni, their greatest coaches, right? But that is what it is. But Clemson, for the most part, they have never seen this much success ever in their history, right? They did win a national title back in, I think, 81 or 82, but that was about it. They've been a juggernaut. They've been a juggernaut in the 2010s, including in the early 2020s. But it's not working for them right now. The last three seasons, it's not lived up to the standard. And you're competing in a conference which is weak. That conference is terrible. Yeah. It's a terrible conference right now. And with the SEC and the SEC and the Big Ten really growing rapidly as it is what it is, we could see Florida State potentially make that move. It's not looking good for Clemson in that university right now. I would say another loser, I'm going to say, is Colorado. And listen, Colorado had again, I think they rank 7th or 6th right now in the transfer portal. They filled a lot of holes, right? They got a lot of people from the transfer portal. But we've seen this before, guys. We have seen this story before. History will repeat itself here. I cannot name one university that solely focused on the transfer portal segment, but not the recruiting standpoint, right? We've seen this with Miami. When the transfer portal first brought up, we've seen what Miami was able to do, right? They focused, and they had one of the greatest transfer portal classes of all time. Right, if you look at it from on paper, but what happened? They got nowhere because the young talent couldn't really develop, right? And we've seen teams do this over and over and over again, including Colorado last year, where yes, they improved from 1 game to 4 wins. Yes, they did, and I'll give Deion Sanders a lot of credit. But we also just seen the situation where Northwestern's head coach, right? Northwestern's head coach in this first year, they went from a 2-3 win program to now becoming a 7 to 8 win football program. We're not giving him enough credit. Why? Because he focused a lot on the recruiting aspect and the developmental standpoint, then adding on top of the transfer portal. He did things the right way. And when I look at Deion Sanders right now, you cannot have back-to-back transfer portal rank classes and have no focus at all on the recruiting standpoint of things. It's not going to get the job done in this day and age. And so, again, they're competing in the Big 12 conference. It's not the strongest conference in the country, and they will have a chance. I expect them to win more than 4 games. But if you want to try to get to where you want to get to, which is potentially competing for a national championship, you have to focus on the recruiting aspect of things. And so far, for what we've seen since the transfer portal exists, teams that solely focus on the portal and ignore the recruiting aspect of things won't get the job done. It will not get the job done at all.
Yeah, you know what I love? We had someone list them as a winner, and I thought you had principled reasons for it, and someone list them as a loser with principled reasons for it. That's the fascinating part about Colorado. That's why I am so keyed in on what they're doing, especially when they move to the Big 12. And speaking of the Big 12, I mean, I'd love to hear from y'all after I hear from Merrill and Nino on this. I feel confident that, and Jake Crane of Crane and Company, he said the same thing, so I want to make sure credit is where it's given. He and I were talking about this on Twitter, where I don't know if there's a team moving to a new conference that has as good of a chance to win the conference as Utah in the new Big 12. Cam Rising coming back. I know they lost some pieces, but they did some good work. Man, I'm excited about the new Big 12. I truly am. Yes, they didn't replace OU in Texas from a brand capacity, but did they get some interesting teams in there? I can't wait. Jake, who lost?
Well, I mean, you guys all hit really awesome ones, right? And I'll go to Oregon State just from a standpoint that Oregon State moving, right? The Pac-12 disintegrating. Oregon State losing their key running back Martinez. I mean, like,
Mhm.
and honestly, with the quarterback going over to Michigan State, that's a huge loss. I mean, Michigan State wins on that one, right? Because that guy's a stud. But I will say Oregon State, and then you could also look at Arizona State as well. You know, you lose did Jaden Rashada bounce, right? And so then you look at these different aspects of saying, okay, well, you know, from an overall standpoint of all these Pac-12 teams that left and who's winning, who's losing, you know, is USC really winning? I don't know yet, right? Like, we'll see what happens this year. USC is going to be a huge question mark. Everyone's hot on their recruiting right now. That's great, but you still got to win games. Your freshmen don't just come in and win the games for you, right? It doesn't work like that. So we'll see. But my biggest ones would be Oregon State. I like Clemson too, but and Michigan State. But at the same time, Oregon State's the big one for me.
Yeah, I love that. Now, I agree with you about I have to see it with USC. Y'all, my takes on USC have been well documented. I do love the hires they made. I forget his name. Is it Entz? Zach Entz, who's the head coach of North Dakota State, now the linebackers coach over there. You get Coach Henney. You get Doug Belk, right?
Yeah.
Coach Sean, Coach Jay. Y'all know about Doug Belk in that secondary now? Like, they've done some darn good work, man. Now we need to see how it comes together because the Big Ten, this is a conference that's going to be a lot more physical.
Yeah, no joke.
And you got to adjust. Nino, my man, who lost in the transfer portal?
Yeah, man, honestly, it's got to be Clemson, but I think Dabo's only saving grace, man, is that, look, they're in a pretty weak conference, you know, so he can kind of scoot by and not use the portal and probably still win probably 9 games, you know, but the team that I think really lost in the portal is a team that lost pretty much their whole offense's portal. It's got to be Arkansas, you know, so Arkansas loses KJ Jefferson, man.
Ooh,
and
good one.
You know, and since Arkansas really doesn't have the dogs in the fight when it comes to really getting down to just strictly dirty recruiting, they don't have the like the funds and like that fertile background, right? They can't hang with the big boys in that, you know, like aspect. So they got to keep the players that they have, but losing KJ Jefferson, who was, you know, like pretty much their entire office last year, is huge.
Yeah, that was a tough one, no doubt about it. Now, it is interesting that they get the MLB player who's coming onto the team. That's super cool. And I know that Jerry Jones, I think he's dedicating some funds to their NIL, which, listen, good for them, right? Anything you can do now that it's legal, play the game. And that's gentlemen, and I'll leave it here. That's my complaint with Dabo, right? Dabo, you are one of the top head coaches in the nation. Don't throw it away by being stuck in the mud. I'm not saying sell out. I'm not saying disregard recruiting. I'm not saying overpay an NIL. Not my contention. Play the game. Because Florida State, they're playing the game. Miami, they're playing the game. And they're in your conference. And
is he now, though, Ty?
What's up?
Is he one of the top coaches right now?
From a pure football standpoint, I think probably. But if listen, it's not just pure football. JC, you're right? Like, this isn't just, are you a good X's and O's coach? This is, can you acclimate to a ever-changing environment? So before we move on, I'd love to hear your take on this, though.
Ever since his first coaching staff left, his first coach, and again, you look at guys like Venables.
Yeah.
Of course, I forgot the defensive line coach. He went with him. Ever since they lost pretty much that first set of offensive coaches, they have not been the same. Because from a talent standpoint, they're still killing everybody in the ACC conference for that while. Even now, they still have one of the more talented teams right now in the country. Like, they have 4 dudes that have a big possibility of being day 1 and day 2 draft picks right now on their defense. But I don't like offensively, they have not been the same team. They haven't been as explosive. I think from a play calling standpoint, there have been head scratching situations where you're like, I don't know what they're kind of doing there. And so I don't know, because they've been outperformed by less talented teams in that conference. It's again, if the team's more talented, it is what it is. But you have been outcoached You've been outplayed so far from a transfer portal standpoint, from an offseason standpoint. You've been outplayed on you've been outplayed on the field. I don't know. I don't know if we would. This is what I keep trying to tell everybody, guys. This is Les Miles. This is Les Miles, because Les Miles, even when he was losing, still had top 5, top 3 recruiting classes, but he couldn't figure it out on the field. And then off the field, wise, when you have coaching staffs leaving left and right, the hiring of Matt. Remember the hiring of Matt Canada, which was a complete absolute disaster with those freaking jet sweeps. I mean, it's this is literally looking like Les Miles. And so I don't know. Like I said, Dabo Swinney, again, he has a great opportunity to win 9 or 10 games. He has a great opportunity to make the playoffs because he doesn't have to win the conference to make it. He has there's a big opportunity where you can go 10-2. You can make college football playoffs. You just have to be impressive within those losses. But yeah, there's an opportunity. But if Florida State or if Miami wins that joint again and Clemson finishes 3rd, or I don't know. Like I think there needs to be some consideration of this dude being in the hot seat because he won't adapt. He's not figuring out on the field because he's getting out coached by talent with teams that have less talent and less and from a coaching standpoint, less talent from the coaching standpoint. So he's losing in that joint and he's not adapting. So something's got to give here with Dabo Swinney. I don't know. I honestly, I would not consider him to be a top 10 coach right now in college football. That's just me. I won't do it.
And listen, I think you're well placed. I don't know that I would put him in the top 10. I think where I sit this is like it's the debate the conversation, Jay, we had about even A&M, right? Like you have the ability to do something, but ability and capability are 2 very different things, right? Like I have the ability to drive my car as fast as it can go, but I'm not going to do it because obviously it'd be very dangerous, right? A&M has the ability to turn it around and be one of the better programs in the nation, but something inherently has been a blockade for A&M. So while the ability is there, especially in the NIL era, there is a capability issue. So I think you make a great point, right? Like there has been a lot of questionable things. I don't even disagree with your hot take or with your hot seat take, right? Like I absolutely think if they finish 3rd in the ACC this year, and they started off with Georgia, right? So like they got a big game, and I know Georgia's not ACC, but you get my point. They got a big game off the rip that we have got to watch. Now, transitioning into the ever-changing landscape, right? I think this is a great transition. Nino in here saying 2024 Dabo is 2011 Mac Brown.
Exactly.
Oh.
Hey, man.
That's a good one.
Look here, man. I'm saying that because Texas, Mac Brown did not adjust as he got older. And you could tell. You could tell that when it came to recruiting, he didn't adjust. You can tell when it came to play calling, offenses. We're running spread offenses in Texas, and he wanted to go ground and pound, which is the direct opposite of what was happening, right? And so he never adapted. And it seems like Dabo's kind of doing the same thing. Maybe Dabo might need to leave, right? Have his batteries recharged, kind of look at the landscape of football and see what's really going on, right? And then figure out, hey, I'm going to come back and coach. But now that I see the entire picture and just how important the transfer portal is and just seeing how important this state is, then he can come back and be a better coach. But he definitely reminds me of Mac Brown after we lost the championship against Bama.
That's a great one. That's interesting for sure.
Yeah,
and it goes in line with what Jance was saying, like the Les Miles connection, right? Like that's fascinating. But gentlemen, I love a good transition, right? And I think that this is the perfect transition because we're talking about a coach who has not proved to be able to adapt to the ever-changing landscape. We're talking about Patriot Life continuing to show great support everywhere he goes. Patriot Life, thank you for the $20 donations. He says, look at this top-notch crew here. Roll Tide. Shout out to all of you. Shout out to you, Patriot Life.
Patriot Life.
Your health and your time, 2 most valuable assets you have. So for you and everybody sitting here watching, we cannot thank you enough that you are sitting here spending time with us on this evening. It truly does mean the world. Bishop says, Nino, you're spitting. I love that. I really love that.
What's up, Bishop?
Love it.
That's my dude.
But transitioning into how college football has changed, Hayes, I got to hear from you on this, man, because you have been arguably the most recognizable figure in high school recruiting for going on years now. So you have been at the forefront of the transfer portal being a one and done to now a judge in West Virginia puts a temporary injunction that was only supposed to be 14 days, and the NCAA bowed out of that fight. How have you seen this landscape change, and what's it been like? I gotta hear from you on this.
Man, I feel like it's really sped up the recruiting process
Yep.
for the high school kids. I mean, on countless occasions, I've heard from high school recruits tell me without, me even asking, they're like, hey, I want to, give my verbal commitment before this, spring window opens. Because, obviously, if a team needs a linebacker and the guy's a linebacker, then he wants to, see, I guess, how many people are going to be taken at his position. And I mean, like I said, I've heard so many different occasions where that has happened. Another thing that I actually heard the other day that kind of brought some interest to me, kind of want to get y'all's thoughts on it too. How much do y'all think the transfer portal impacts JUCO? I mean, I heard Coach Jason Brown, used to coach at Indy. He gave a little take on it. He said JUCO might be dead in a few years just because of the transfer portal.
That's a good point, because we know it's affecting recruiting. Inevitably, it's got to be affecting JUCO. Coach Sean, thoughts?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I agree with everything Hayes said, from the speeding up of the recruiting landscape on to it possibly killing JUCO ball. I see it. I was fortunate enough to play my college ball at the HBCU, and it's the same with them. You develop these kids, you think it's going to be with you 2 or 3 years, and they transfer up now. So, yeah, so it's very difficult to keep the best talent there. So I can only imagine at the JUCO level that should be astronomical bad at the JUCO level. But yeah, with the way everything is going right now, with the kids feel like they gotta pick and choose early and things of that nature, it has sped up the entire process, and I can definitely see where JUCO ball is in jeopardy of being squeezed out with how things are going right now.
What are you thinking, man?
Yeah, man, definitely, because, in high school, let's say like a kid doesn't have his grades straight, right? He goes to JUCO for 2 years and does his thing, right? And then after that, he's, like one of the top guys in JUCO, and then after that, he goes D1. That's totally out of the question now, because now, I don't have time to wait on the kid to get his grades straight and go to JUCO when I can go plug and play a guy that I already recruited for, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I can go pick him from Michigan State or go to Auburn and get this kid. So like that, honestly, these coaches already know these kids. And so now it just makes it that much easier for them to kind of pluck them away. So JUCO might, honestly just go away, man. And it's sad to see.
Yep.
Now, one of the things, Hayes, one of the reasons why I was so excited to get you on here this evening, along with Coach Sean and Jake, both of these gentlemen, they played college ball. So they can kind of speak to how recruiting was then, and nobody knows recruiting like you do now. So, Jake, I want to hear from you, man. How do you, from when you were recruited, and Coach Sean as well, how much has things changed? And Hayes, jump in whenever you want. I think that, especially for the viewers, for me, I think that that'd be a fascinating conversation, because I think it really would paint the picture that, Jake, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, man, where it was your time. And I know you might say like, oh, it's been, but in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long ago. But college football, the timeline in college football, like 10 years in college football is ancient at this point, just with how quickly things are accelerating. So talk to me, Jake, about how it was whenever you were coming out being recruited. Hayes, let me know how different that is to how it is now. And Coach Sean, I want to hear y'all talk about your experiences here and how things have changed.
Yeah, I mean, you look at recruiting now, recruiting back in the day, right, would have been, let's say, 2002 to 2006, right? So I received my first offer, verbal offer, because they can't give you a written one, but first verbal offers in 8th grade, all right? But at those timeframes, it was just pure luck. It had nothing to do with social media, because social media didn't exist. right? I mean, it was coming too, right? Like you had MySpace and AOL Instant Messenger, everybody. I mean, it was pretty cool, right? But now you got Instagram, right? I mean, Instagram, Twitter Twitter is like on a whole nother level. You want to watch little snippets of players, pretty wild. Like you can see all that. I think, and Hayes, you'll be able to speak to this really well, but the recruiting websites who have really just, like, you look at On3, you look at 247 Sports. I don't even know if I know Rivals is there, but they're not even quite the same level. Rivals used to be the premier recruiter back then. And even then, you can't hit every player. It's not like you can watch video from home. You'd have to get those videos sent. You know what's funny is I have this big box of all my letters, everything I have, offers, tapes, highlights from years. I used to send those out in VHS. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. And look, and that you're right. It's not that long ago. I mean, to me it is, because in the football world, 5 years and you could be done and retired. 5 years in the NFL, you're done at 29. Your career's over. 26 if you're a running back, right? So, you know what I mean? Like you look at some of these guys nowadays and what the recruiting has done, and now NIL. We look at NIL and how much it's impacted. You did bring up the JUCO. It's funny. I was just looking at that the other day, and I was going, man, how many coaches don't want to spend time recruiting JUCO guys because already were. You look at the fact that they could not make it at the college, the Division I level. A lot of it's because of either issues from personal issues or school issues. That's why they have to go JUCO, right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily fall into talent, speed, athletic ability. They got to go there because of other issues. Well, guess what? Coaches already have to deal with the NIL and all these other portals, and now they have the options of not having to deal with issues. It's pretty easy for them to say, I'm not even going to waste my time. I already got enough stuff I got to worry about.
It's hard, man. It's hard. It's hard. Coming from a JUCO program, I went to ACC. I played where I kind of played. I did a couple years there, but I'm telling you, it's hard. And there are so many. At least where I played again, it was a lower division. It's not like Blinn College or or Mississippi Gulf Coast, which are like the top premier JUCO programs in the country. Where that's where the D1 prospects will kind of go towards, and then that's where at least college football names will have to kind of bring their names to it. But it's hard. Like we had dudes from St. Ionitis. We had guys from Paramus in New Jersey. We had from King, from Martin Luther King in Detroit, right? We had some dogs from everywhere. St. Joseph's Prep in Pennsylvania, Philly. I mean, we've had dogs walk through into the JUCO program, and then you ask their story, like, dude, what are you doing here? Why are you playing here? And it's because of maybe it was personal issues where they had to it was a mental battle what they had to go through. It was injuries, which again, like a lot of teams would kind of retract their offers, right? And then of course the classroom, right? They couldn't get it right in the classroom in high school, or they failed their SAT, and so they had to kind of go the JUCO, because there is a requirement for SAT, and then they had to kind of go the JUCO route, right, where you can do about a year, and then you can try to hopefully go off to college. And I mean, there are hundreds of there's so many JUCO programs around the country where you are lucky for any team, any coach to look at you. It didn't matter, right? If for my area, if Buffalo, if Buffalo's looked at your way, it was a blessing. Like I know high school recruits, when they get their offer, they say, "Oh, it's a blessing." And, you know how it is. Like they say, it's a blessing to get here. No, I'm telling you, when you get the JUCO and you're fighting for offers, it doesn't matter how many yards you rush, it doesn't matter how much film, it doesn't matter how much film you watch, how many tackles you make, does not matter, right? You're playing on. I mean, you have trainers that won't even wash your jerseys. You have to do it yourself. You have to wash your jerseys. You have to, the weight rooms are small. They're not as advanced compared to some of the fancy high schools that a lot of these people went to. For me, it was normal, right? It was normal because I didn't go to again, I went to Canisius for about a year, and then I was able to then I moved around here. So I was humbled when I got to the JUCO ranks. I'm like, I'm just proud to just play enough football. But a lot of these dudes that come through the JUCO ranks, they're top premier players that are looking for an opportunity to once again get that offer. And so now that you have the transfer portal where it's like you don't have to look there, once you actually screw up and you have no choice but to go down to JUCO, it went from, I would say, a 75-80% chance that you won't get that offer again to a point now where, yeah, you can go to Mississippi Gulf Coast or you can go to Blinn College. You can go to some of the best in the country. You still probably won't get that offer because now they're looking for the transfer portal where it's a lot easier to evaluate, right, in terms of evaluation, and you don't have to go towards those lower ranks in order for you to find a player. Because once you're not just evaluating one player once you go to JUCO, you're evaluating a lot of these dudes to see who is the top dog, who stands out the most, and even then they won't get that offer. So yeah, it's way harder now. And this is a separation of a few years, right? 20 like from 2020 all the way till now. It's jumped up, and I feel bad for JUCO players nowadays. They have to try to fight their way and grind to get that offer.
Hey, Ty.
Yeah,
Go ahead, man.
Hey, man. And so now, man, since it's like such an a atmosphere now where it's like win now, right? Once you get a kid from JUCO, he doesn't have the weight training that he needs to have. His eating habits aren't the same either, right? So you can go, like actually get a kid from the portal who has been like at a big time program, who has been lifting weights, has their weight up, so has, like all the proper processes in place. So those kids are already just like maybe 2 to 3 steps behind. So you get those kids and you literally have to bring them on campus and build them up again, whereas you go to the portal and you get a kid who's already ready made, so he can pretty much step in day one.
It's crazy. Coach Jay out here just had an incredible humble brag. Coach Jay, we've made content together for 3 years now, and you have never told me you played college ball.
Yeah, I talk about it all the time in Bama Insider. I talk about it all the time.
Well, how rarely do we get to stream together on Bama YouTube?
Yeah.
You've never told me you played college, but it makes so much sense because the guy's got great insight. The guy knows exactly what he's talking about. So yeah, 1,000%. That makes a ton of sense. Hayes, I got to ask you this as well, man. There has been a rise in the college football GM position, right? Alabama just gets Courtney Morgan. Oklahoma just made a move, getting somebody in. Do you think that's something we're going to see spread throughout college football because of how tough it is to recruit now in between high school, the transfer portal, and maintaining your own roster?
Oh, 100%. No doubt about it. I mean, like I mentioned to you earlier when I was talking to that coach, I mean, it's a nonstop grind. When you're a college football coach or, even on staff, this is really 24/7, not 24/7, but 365-day a year job. I mean, from recruiting high school to transfer portal to not only that, but nowadays you got to recruit your own roster to stay the next year. So yeah, no, the GM position is one that I definitely see continuing to be a very important position for college football programs moving forward in this day and age.
Now, when we talk about recruiting, Hayes, you've heard from Jake how it was when he was there. Talk to us about how rapidly it's changing, and then where do we go from here, right? Because if you talk to the fans, there's a lot of dissatisfied people within all these college football fan bases about the current status, the status quo of college football, whether that's the NIL discussions we have, the transfer portal. Where do we go from here? Being someone who is on the front lines of this, knows this better than anybody in the business, where do you see all of this ending up in 5, even 10 years from now?
Man, that's a great question, and I've actually been thinking about it. And just from kind of being in the position that I am, in terms of, like breaking the news on recruiting and transfer portal, I read something on Twitter the other day, and it kind of got me thinking. And somebody said, "Man, nowadays recruiting doesn't even really mean anything to me anymore. I'm more focused on the transfer portal." Because, y'all said at the beginning of the show, you have true freshmen that, that commit to a school, sign, early enroll, and then 3 months later, they're entering the portal. And, the investment from the fan, they're like, I've been following this guy and, excited that he's on our roster for X amount of months, and then he gets here and then he leaves. Something I've definitely been thinking about, like, what is the future of recruiting like? Is all the focus really going to be shifted towards the transfer portal? Because it really does seem like the transfer portal is taking over.
Yeah, and it's absolutely incredible. The man, the myth, the legend, Coach Smook in the building, guys. Once again, another great content creator in here. If you guys are not subscribed to his channel, I don't know what you're doing. He puts out high quality content. Coach, we need to get you in here ASAP, my man. You just let me know. But it's interesting because whenever we talk about this, we know that I've always referred to the transfer portal as a Band-Aid. And it seems like the Band-Aid is going from, hey, we're going to just take a guy from the transfer portal, a few guys from the transfer portal, to now it almost seems like, and I don't know this to be true, but I would imagine there are some coaches out there that are processing guys out in favor of transfer portal additions. Is that happening, or is that just my fears, Hayes?
Man, it's definitely happening. Just like, we discussed earlier, that's why a lot of these guys want to get committed so early. They want to, make sure that they're a take. They want to make sure that they have a spot. And, man, I'm very interested to kind of see how this continues to develop over the years.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this. Guys, something else that I'm fascinated by that luckily we don't have to wait years to see. It's felt like we've waited years since the announcement of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. But it's happening this year. And the SEC landscape, listen, we talked earlier about the Big Ten going to be fascinating. I said something earlier about the Big 12. I think that's a fascinating league right now with the additions of BYU, Houston, Utah. I mean, goodness gracious, that right there that's incredible. Let's talk SEC. Hayes, I'll start with you. When you're looking at the SEC this year, who are some teams that you think are poised to make noise in the SEC? You see what I did there? Kendrick, if you need some rhymes, hit me up, man. I got you.
Man, I mean, obviously, you got to start with Georgia. I mean, you have your quarterback returning, Carson Beck. I mean, Georgia's just Georgia, right? I'm very interested to see what Texas and Oklahoma do as well, making the transition. I really do think the SEC is going to be very competitive as always. And another team, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to make like a deep run or anything, but I'm very fascinated by Missouri. I mean, you get guys coming back like Brady Cook, arguably the best receiver in the nation, and Luther Burden. You have Caden Green coming in. You also picked up another top offensive tackle in the portal, and Marcus Bryant. Been recruiting really well. Got Williams and Wary. I mean, I'm very fascinated with Missouri. But yeah, those are just some teams off the top of my head that I'm very interested in seeing how their 2024 season plays out.
It's funny you talk about Missouri, Hayes, because I said this to Coach Sean the other day.
Yep.
You don't know how excited I am that Missouri didn't get a Dylan Edwards, because losing Cody Schrader, I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, man, if Missouri somehow pulls Dylan Edwards from Colorado, the SEC has got their hands full, because that kid is a home run waiting to happen anywhere he gets the ball. So in a roundabout way, I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much that he decided Kansas State and not Missouri. So I love that pick of Missouri. Coach Sean, SEC schools you're interested in, right? And don't be afraid. You can give the take. I know you want to give the take.
Yeah. Oh, listen, let me explain something really, really quickly. This is what makes the SEC different, man. The Big 12 is not a bunk league, right? They're an offensive league. They can play ball up there just like we play ball here. The difference is you have a team like Kentucky or Mississippi State that's sort of middle of the road, 7 to 9 wins on a regular season, maybe, right? The difference is going to these places on the road on a Saturday night, a game that you think easy win, right? You'll look up in the fourth quarter and you'll be in a fight. This conference is different when you play road games. Is very, very, very different. I think Texas is what Sark has done at Texas. To me, he's built from the inside out. I think his time at Bama really helped Sark understand what this league is. This league, you're gonna have to have exceptional depth, right? From game 1 to game 12. You got to have some game changers on the edges, and you got to have a quarterback that don't get you beat, right? In the SEC, man, that's every week, even the weeks that you think is not going to be, even the Kentucky week or the Mississippi State week. The only week that we all know that you can really, really let your hatches down is the Vanderbilt week. Now, with that being said, I think Texas is going to be a problem. I really do. I like what Sark done. I don't think it's a one-year thing, right? He's recruited well. Kids see that SEC logo on the side. That's why Texas A&M hated so bad for those guys to be here. Because with that SEC logo, man, you get a couple more doors open to you than other conferences. Mm-hmm. Now that Texas is here, you see what's happening, right? But I will say this, and not to be homerish, but I got to be honest, right? The University of Alabama, man, won't go nowhere, bro. And I'm going to tell you why. It's a reason why Alabama didn't go into the portal just full-fledged hatches down, right? Of course, we know we need secondary help. We lost all three people who started. We lost Kool-Aid, Terrion, and Jalen Key back there. But at the same time, when you look at the D-line depth, when you look at the pass rushing depth, now we have two new coordinators, of course, but the talent is there, guys. A lot of young talent is there. And these kids are ready to play, right? So we're going to be good in the trenches. Anytime you can be good in the trenches, your quarterback don't get you beat, you have a chance to win. So if I had to pick a team or two teams that I say Alabama, be careful with them. Everybody's overlooking Alabama. Be careful with those guys. University of Texas. We know Georgia's going to be good. We'll find out how good this year because they have to come to Alabama. And Kirby in his last 7 games is 1-6 against Alabama, right? So you bullied everybody but that school in Tuscaloosa. Texas has had an opportunity to see competition from both sides of the ball. They have. And I think they're ready. I think Oklahoma will be good, but I don't think they're quite there yet, right? We have a dangerous game going to Oklahoma, but I think Texas is built for that league right now. I really, really believe that. And so if I had to pick two, it's Bama and Texas.
Love it. Love it. Jance, talk to me.
Yeah, I look at the SEC and Nino and Ty, you guys, I've been saying this for years. I said that, once the announcement was made about Texas and Oklahoma, I said they will be fine, right? They will not suffer a drop off. They're going to come in the SEC and they're going to be just fine. Matter of fact, they actually might be better than what they actually were, very similar to what A&M was when they first came to the SEC and really put a high emphasis on how important the spread was to the SEC. And so that's what I think Texas and Oklahoma is going to bring to the table. I think they're going to bring a different pace from the Big 12 to the SEC that I think that will be completely new. But, like Coach Sean was saying, Alabama is, you look at the offense that we're going to be bringing onto the table. This is going to be a completely brand new offense that teams like Georgia has not seen yet. And so Georgia's preparation for Alabama, it's going to be a lot different compared to preparing for a Saban-led team with the Saban-led offense. And even it will be different with Mike Locksley. And it'll be very similar to Sark. Very, very similar to Sark. Yeah. And we all know how much trouble Georgia teams had to deal with the Sark-led offense, even like a Kiffin-led offense, in that manner. So this SEC, this is going to be the most intriguing conference in the country, but also a very, very tough conference to see. And but no, Texas and Oklahoma, I'm very interested in that. I think a lot of people are overlooking Oklahoma a little bit. I like what Oklahoma was able to do in terms of addressing a lot of their needs, including in the trenches, which last year I thought they did a much better job improving in the trenches and being a lot bigger and a lot more physical. I do know they lost Tyler Guyton, but the year prior you lose another first-round guy, so you've had they've addressed back-to-back first-round tackles, which means that the development has been exceptional so far with their offensive line. I can see a very similar situation going into year 3 under Brent Venables and that regime. But I'm a big believer in Jackson Arnold, right? I like Jackson Arnold. I love his upside. I love his arm talent. He has some mobility added into his game. You add Deion Burks, Jalil Farouk still there, and then their defense, Danny Stutzman, right? I think I'm a big believer in Jared Kanak in terms of his upside, right? Peyton Wilson went 3rd round, and if it wasn't for the injury history and the fact that he had no ACL, he could have been a 1st-round pick. I see that same potential in a Jaron Kanak. We all know Billy Bowman's going to be returning. He was a big player for them last year. So I'm a big believer in Oklahoma. Texas, obvious reasons, right? Sark. You look at the coaching staff that has been able to assemble. You look at the offense with Nyblack and Bond. The offensive line will be one of the best in the nation with, Kelvin Banks leading the charge. He'll be, I mean, there's an argument right now. He's top three pick right now in the country. And then their defensively will be interesting to kind of see, but even then they got a lot of talent there. So I think that this SEC year is going to be extremely intriguing. I know a lot of people are high on Ole Miss. A lot of people were high on Missouri, but we also can't forget about the factor of what Oklahoma and Texas will be bringing to the table. And quite frankly, from an environment standpoint, from a play styling standpoint, I could see these two teams doing extremely well in their first year and getting a lot and giving a lot of these teams a run for their money.
I agree with you completely. And whenever we're talking about OU, what I will add to that, Jance, is that I agree with you about Jackson Arnold. That wide receiving room is dangerous now. They got two dudes that are above 6'4" that have got speed. Deion Burks comes in, and he's a dude. Petaway, right? I think it's easy to forget about Petaway, who went there, who looked like one of the best slot wide receivers in the nation in his respective class. And then they have Coach Emmett Jones coaching the wide receivers. And I thought that was a phenomenal win. And to your point, Jance, listen, and I've said this often, I'm not going to shy away from it. If you're asking me, Ty, what's your biggest question for OU right now? It's got to be offensive line. But the reason why, as soon as I say that, I give you a but, and Boomer, you're right. It also, Andrell Anthony coming back from injury, and he was a big guy. I mean, he was a big-time winner. Mm-hmm. Every time I address, like, hey, my biggest question, Ty, were you surprised that OU didn't add a quarterback? No, not really, man. Malik, I don't know why I said Malik. Malik Hawkins behind Jackson Arnold, from everything I've heard, has really impressed. He looks like he's going to be a really fun player to watch. Jackson Arnold, I think, has got a ton of upside. I got to watch Jackson Arnold live and in person a bunch. And, I mean, Jackson Arnold is going to be a really, really, really talented player. But what I will say is this. Every time I say, like, hey, Casey Thompson. Okay, they did add Casey Thompson. You're right. I don't know why that slipped right by me. They did add Casey Thompson. Thank you very much for that, Sooner Cowboy. And who else said it? It was Sooner Cowboys. And, okay, it was just Sooner Cowboys. But here's what I'll say. Every time I have a question, or I say, like, oh, I have a question about Oklahoma's offensive line, the next thing out of my mouth is, but they have Beatonbow. Mm-hmm. And, like, that's an answer to the question. So do I know what it's going to look like? No. Do I think that they might be world beaters week one? Maybe not, right? Like, who is when you're replacing that much on the offensive line? But are they going to figure it out? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They got four dudes this year, man, that are transfers new to the table. And but then, you know what's crazy, Ty? They've done that for 2 years in a row.
And Bill Beatonbow, man.
Yeah.
Bill Beatonbow, man. You got to trust him.
Yeah. He's one of the few coaches out there where you could present to me like, hey, they got to replace all this. And if you're like, oh, well, I have a Bill Beatonbow-esque coach at that position, I'm like, okay, that's enough for me to say you got an answer. I don't know when it will come together, how it will look, but it will come together. Jake, talk to me about some SEC teams that are standing out to you.
Oh, man. You know, the SEC is so unique, right? Because you can go in there. Again, the additions with Texas and Oklahoma, they fit right in. They should have been there a long time ago. Let's be honest. You know, in the end, this shouldn't have taken so long. But the facts are is they're both going to play really well. You look how Texas played Alabama this last season. They're going to be prepared just from a coaching staff standpoint. Obviously, they're loaded with depth. You look at the way Oklahoma played Texas this last season. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma is going to put up a fight no matter who they play. Right? Anybody who wants to doubt them, that's a bad news. Don't do that. Texas did it last season. They got beat. Right? So you look at those aspects along with those two teams, they're going to be exciting to watch as being new additions. But I think the teams that I'm interested to see is, number one, Florida in their third year. I want to see if Napier, with this sort of schedule and what supposedly there's a lot of positive talk right now. There's a lot of positive talk. Right, with Billy Napier, right? But man, we'll see what happens though, right? Like if he can pull it out, we're gonna all be really surprised then going forward, because Florida's gonna hit some momentum into recruiting, and that's gonna be kind of scary. If especially with the schedule he's gonna go against. So that's one team, I think, for me. I think the other team, you know, we could list against so many. There's of course, there's Georgia, there's LSU, there's these teams that are always good, right? But I think the team everyone's going to be watching, and just because we see it consistently in the news this year, is going to be Alabama.
Yeah.
Right now, Alabama is so, with Nick Saban doing College Game Day 24/7 every weekend, Alabama has been talked about more than I think I've ever seen them talked about on the news. But this season with Saban retiring, with the massive change of coaching staff, with who's left in the portal, both, you know, from winter and for spring. I mean, and now with their additions, which I'm going to tell you guys what, I think their additions, the guys they got, that cornerback from Wake Forest, everyone wants to hate on him. That I watched film on that dude. That dude can play. That guy's aggressive, and he puts himself in some really. You watch the way he plays that zone. He is perfect for this defense. That guy is right on cue and what they need to add a little bit of depth with some of these young guys. So I think Alabama is going to be exciting. And you're right, like, you know, Coach Sean brought this up, but with the aspect of, you know, Coach DeBoer doesn't lose. I hate to say it, but I mean, just to look at his record and look everywhere he's been. He doesn't lose. He doesn't know how to lose. He's like Michael Jordan. Winners win. I hate to say it like that too. A lot of people get pissed off from that comment, but guess what? It's the truth. Winners win.
What is it, 114 and 12?
I don't even know if it's 12, man. It might be like 9. I got to go back and look.
I know he inherited a Washington program that was 4-8. The first year he went 11-2, and then this year he went 14-1. He was 25-3 at Washington, inheriting a 4-8 program.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Nino, my guy.
Oh man, so look, I won't talk about Texas because you already know how I feel about Texas. But man, look, Ty,
feel
I've
free
been
to
saying
talk
this
about
for the
Texas.
longest. Nah. It's all good, you know. But look, Ty, I've been saying this for the longest. When is Lane Kiffin going to get his signature win? It has to come this year.
Yeah.
It has to come this year.
Yeah.
It has to come this year. Like Lane,
Has
you
to.
went to the portal.
Has to.
You got a ton of players from the portal. You got a very talented and loaded team. You're a top 5 team in the country here for a reason. Like, I want to see Lane get his win this year. Get your signature win on paper that is going to show that I have arrived and my team is here to stay. Will it happen this year? Who knows? It should happen, but look, I don't know. Look, man, Tennessee, Nico being the starting quarterback. Tennessee won 8 games last year in spite of their quarterback, right?
That's
so
right.
when Heupel has this guy, look, I look for them to win a lot of games here. So, you know, like if Nico is that guy, which I think he is, I look for them to win a lot of games this year. But Ty, man, all my Texas people will give me a lot of crap when I say this, and I said this on numerous podcasts. Jalen Miro special, right? People are sleeping on Alabama like it's nothing. It's still Alabama, folks. There's a lot of talent at Alabama. Now, this comment that I'm going to say right now is going to piss off a lot of my Texas fans. I get it. Look, I'm a Texas grad. Understand, hook them all day long. Horns always up, right? But the things that I'm seeing from Jalen Milroe remind me of a guy that played at Texas. And one of that at Texas. Now, hear me out. He's not Vince Young, folks. Milroe is not Vince Young. I'm not saying he's Vince Young, but I want to compare the season that Vince Young had in his 3rd year to what Jalen Milroe had in his 3rd year this year. Texas barely won games in Vince's 3rd year. They were barely winning, scooting by. They lose 1 game to OU, 12-0. But he goes on this magical run, and they're winning a bunch of games, and it's not primarily because of Vince all the time, but he opened up in that Rose Bowl. And we saw what he did against Michigan. Now, the next year, they went from winning a little bit to winning by a lot. And I think that Jalen Milroe run by a little bit this year because of the offensive coordinator that he had. I was not a big fan of Tommy Rees, right? I just wasn't. You're getting Kalen DeBoer. You're getting a guy that is 50 times better than the guy that you had calling plays last year. And so I look for Jalen Milroe to have an outstanding season this year. I look for Alabama to be one of the top teams in the country this year that everybody's sleeping on, and they think that Bama's going to take this magical step back because Nick Saban's not there. But the talent is there, and Kalen DeBoer is one hell of a coach. People put some respect on that man's name. Jalen Milroe's going to jump leaps and bounds this year. Alabama, my hot take, they're going to finish the top 4 team in the country. They're going to be in the playoffs this year, and they might win the whole damn thing. Jalen Milroe's that special of a quarterback, and I don't think people realize just how good he is. I've seen him throughout his whole high school career in Texas. I've seen, just the things that he's done. I saw what he did last year with the lack of an offensive line and the lack of real coaching on offense. and they were still winning games, 12-1, winning the SEC, folks, beating a Georgia team that won how many games straight, Todd? 35, 36? How many games?
They were up there.
All right.
Yeah.
20 plus, yeah.
And each game he got better. He got better each game. 4th and 31, folks. That's magical stuff. And then he goes to the SEC, he goes to that game and wins like the championship game. And they're one play away from playing in the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to Michigan, who won the national championship game. They lost by one play, folks, in overtime. And Ty, how many bad snaps they had? 32?
It was. I'm going to have PTSD tonight. I'm going to wake up in cold snap.
Yeah.
And then the last play, the snap, he had to pick it up from his ankle.
To pick it up, right? So I look for their offense to be so much better this year. I do. And I think Milroe's going to be outstanding in that offense. They picked up great pieces, man. A really good wide receiver, too, there in the portal as well. Getting Proctor back. Hopefully Proctor loses some weight. And so he's down to about a 345 range. Playing left tackle, I think that's that's more comfortable for him. But look, man, Bama's going to be really good this year, and of course Texas, man. Texas is built very well from the offensive line. All right, I think they're going to have one of the stronger lines in the probably in that country. OU is going to be very good on the defensive line. All right, I think they're going to come ready-made from the defensive line, and I've been telling people this too, man. Texas's offensive line versus OU's defensive line is going to be a thing of beauty here this year and the years coming, because BV is building one hell of a defensive line. Sark is building one hell of an O-line. And it's like these guys are going to clash here every year. It's just a matter of who's going to be able to build the better, opposite side of the ball quicker. And that team that is going to be able to do it is going to be able to own the Red River and actually compete for championships more often. So, but look, man, Bama is my dark horse. I think Bama's going to be outstanding this year. People, please don't sleep on Jalen Milroe. The kid's special. He's special. He's going to really be good now that he has a coach that's going to, let those special talents come through.
Well, it's crazy, Nino. Bama is in a position where Nick Sheridan is the offensive coordinator running DeBoer's offense. Their tight end coach, Byron Ellis, he was the passing game coordinator and offensive coordinator for Western Kentucky when Bailey Zappi put up those video games. So they have an offense. And I know people raise their eyebrows when I say this. Bama's offensive staff is better this year than it was last year. And I don't know that it's close.
Definitely.
It's not even close, Ty.
Definitely.
It's not even close.
Facts.
No.
It's not even
Facts.
close.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And Coach Shepard, with the wide receivers, we saw what he just did at Washington.
Yep.
3 deep out there. And had they not sustained some injuries, he'd have been 4 deep out there with guys putting up video game numbers. And I love that, because you scouted Coach DeBoer, right? Like you were watching, wondering, okay, Texas versus DeBoer, how is this going to go? And it's funny because I was sitting there and I remember we did our Bleacher Report show. And I was like, man, if this Texas offensive line can get home, that's a great, or defensive line, can get home on what, that's a great defensive front. And I'll never forget, because it was almost poetic, right as I say that, you start saying, well, DeBoer kind of worries me. Texas Homer texts me, and he says, Penix and DeBoer terrify me.
Yes.
And I was like, oh,
I remember that. I remember that, yeah. I was saying it. Homer was texting you exactly as I was saying it, because he gets the ball out so quick, man. He gets that ball out so quick that it almost neutralizes your line. All right. He is going to be outstanding, dude. I'm telling you, man, Bama got a great pickup with Caleb DeBoer, man. And Milroe, he might be a first-round draft pick after this year because of DeBoer.
He's going to stay with Jaden Daniels.
Huh?
We see with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, man, he's going to be special, man. I don't think people understand how special Milroe is. He's lights out, dude. Bama, you guys got a good one. Texas had him. We wanted him. We wanted him. What forced him out was when Quinn Ewers came, right? And we were sad that we lost him. We loved Jalen Milroe, folks. And so, man, look, you guys got a good one.
You don't know how happy that makes me to hear, right? Especially because, like, Brian's in the comments saying Nino knows. Let me tell you what, Brian, Nino knows his stuff, right? Like, the people we're having on, man, they're here because they know their stuff. We got Hayes Fawcett granting us his time. Nobody knows recruiting in the transfer portal like this guy. Nino knows Texas ball like anybody. Jake played. Coach Sean played, Coach Jay played, and I'm just the pretty face on the panel, right? Everybody has a purpose, right? Everybody has a purpose. I know mine. And so we're here to rock and roll. So, guys, as we're winding down, I love everybody's takes. I think, Hayes, I love yours about Missouri. I am so interested to see what Missouri is going to do because I was someone, Hayes, who thought Drinkwitz might be going on to the hot seat last year, and then boom. I mean, they have as good of a year as you could possibly have. Now, Hayes, kind of putting you on the spot here. Is there a team in the SEC that you think is going to surpass expectations for this year? And it could be any team we've named. It could even be Missouri, who you talked about, but fascinated to hear your perspective on that.
Man, that's a good question. I mean, thinking about it, I'm going to say Missouri because, I mean, look, I mean, they do have high expectations coming off of, you know, they beat Ohio State last year, last game of the season, their bowl game. However, we all know, you know, a lot of Ohio State's best players opted out. But, like, I'm not even really sure what their expectations are this year. But I really do think they're going to surprise a lot of people and, you know, maybe even have a better year than they did last year.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Is this an Oregon fan that just hopped into the chat? Welcome.
Oh, Jesus. I'm just kidding.
Welcome. We just got done bragging about your program and the incredible work y'all did in the transfer portal, and that hurts the gentleman below me because he played for the Huskies. But even he had to say it, man. Steezy, y'all did great work in the portal. Moon Rocka says, hey, it's up there. Smook should be on here too if you ask me. Listen, I just asked Smook if he'd like to come on next Monday. This was just a 6-person panel. And so I was like, I think if I start to get to 7 or 8, it's going to be tough to go around and have a bunch of conducive conversations, right? But just text Smook seeing if he'd like to be on next week because that would be a ton of fun. Patriot Life with the $10 saying, fasten your seatbelts. Should be a wild ride this season. Thank you very much for the donation, Patriot Life. Now, guys, I have a question for y'all, right? And Hayes, you can omit from this discussion if you wish. Because there was a list that just came out about the top teams in the SEC. At number 1, they had Georgia. Listen, I know I've talked about this, and Bama fans have pushed back, and they're like, I don't know about Georgia number 1. Kirby's there. They got a ton of talent. They're going to be good, right? I think that's one of the safest bets in America right now. Is Georgia going to be a good team? Yeah. Are they going to win a national championship? We'll see. I think there's going to be a lot but they're going to be good. At number 2, they had Texas. Nino, I even argued. I was like, listen, I get it. They returned Quinn. They've got a lot of talented pieces. I'm interested in the wide receiver room. Not to say that I'm thinking it's going to lack. I think Wingo is. Yes. I think Wingo is incredible. Yes. At number 3, they had Ole Miss, and this is where I kind of started to ask some questions because Nino, like you and I have said for so long, what's his biggest win? 2019 A&M, like it. And that's not a facetious question. That's legit. What's Lane's biggest win? 2019 A&M would be my answer. That's a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. But number 4 is the one that perplexed me, guys. LSU. Now, I've always said this.
Serious?
Yeah, no, yeah. They had LSU at 4, Bama at 5. Now, let me explain. I think LSU will be fine, right? If we're listing LSU's concerns, they lost two first-round talents at wide receiver. But listen, if there's one thing I'm not worried about LSU replacing, it's wide receiver, right?
Facts.
They got 5 more first-rounders loaded, ready to fire off, and that's the unfortunate reality of the situation. But gentlemen, they didn't have a strong rush game last year. Jaden Daniels supplemented the run because of his just incredible ability. So you got to replace that. You got to replace Jaden Daniels. I like Nuss. I'm going to be the first to say it. I like Nuss. I think he's going to be a really, really good quarterback. Guys, that defense was not good last year.
Exactly.
And they lost Mason Smith. They didn't get big transfer portal wins on the defensive line. So that was the only one where it's like, listen, if you're an LSU fan, I'm not saying you're going to be bad this year. You're LSU. You recruit well, you get talent, But if I'm sitting here and saying, do I think you're the number 4 team in the SEC? Respectfully, no, not as we sit here and talk. I got major questions about your defensive line. I got major questions about your defense as a whole. I got major questions about your running game. I don't know. Guys, I'm going to open this up to everybody. Whoever wants to jump in first. Am I misplaced here? Someone talk me off the ledge.
I don't think you are. I don't think you're misplaced at all. I personally believe, I'm not sure if LSU, I would put Ole Miss above LSU, because if not this year, it's kind of like what Nino said. If not this year, when? I'll take the other side of the Ole Miss. These guys lost 2 games last year to Georgia and Bama, right? And pretty much destroyed everybody else. Same quarterback coming back, same scheme, better talent. If not next year, when? I don't see how you put LSU in front of Alabama. I can almost accept that Ole Miss is in front of Alabama. I understand, because it's a projection, right? I get that Lane hadn't won that signature game. I get it. But remember, again, this team only lost 2 games last year to Georgia and Bama. And you look at Georgia, Georgia has to come to Alabama. They have to go to Austin, Texas. They have to go to Ole Miss. This is going to be one of your tougher schedules that Georgia's ever played, right? We're not even going to talk about Florida's schedule, because that's probably the toughest college schedule I've probably ever seen in my life, ever. I challenge everybody to go look at that Florida schedule and look at the back end of that thing. It's unfair, right?
Tough. Yeah. OU schedule too.
Yes.
Yeah, OU got a tough.
OU schedule too.
OU got a brutal schedule.
Listen, they didn't do OU any favors, man. They really gave them a tough one off the rip. So, yeah, I totally disagree with that LSU take. I'm not sure what they're projecting with that. I guess they're projecting they got a lot of defensive talent back, so maybe they'll be better, I guess. But I definitely would have had Georgia, Texas, possibly Ole Miss, then Bama. I can live with that for right now.
We beat you to it, Sooner Cowboys. We beat you to it. Coach Jay, go ahead.
This is where I can understand why I think people hold LSU into high regard. They have the best offensive line returning back in the country. Like, it's not even close. That offensive line is really freaking good, right? You got right, you got Will Campbell he could be the number 1 overall pick. That's how good of a talent he is. And again, I'm a big fan of Kelvin Banks, but that offensive line returning back is going to be star-studded. So that's going to really, really help them. Receivers wise, again, they don't have any notable names from returning from last year, but that talent that they have in Louisiana and like the whatever's in the gumbo in Baton Rouge, man. I mean, I don't know what it is, but for some reason they just continue to produce star after star after star. Their quarterback coach, they moved him to offensive coordinator, so he's gonna, he's gonna be. How is that going to work? Because yes, he did a great job in development in terms of the development of Jaden Daniels, but now for the first time he's in play calling duty. How is that really going to work out? We've seen coaches that can become good quarterback coaches, but then have to make that full-time development, still not be able to progress. I think that's a question mark there. But Brian Kelly fired his entire coaching staff. I mean, he fired them all, and he literally replaced them this year. Now, yes, you got great hires. You got Bo Davis.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got Corey Raymond. I forgot the line. You got Baker, who's solid, right? Solid. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Kendrick, to see what they do with Perkins, because with Perkins, they started him off at Mike. He got torched in the Florida State game, and they moved him out right back to Will, and then he did really, really, really good. They're moving him back to Mike. So I don't know how that's going to really, really work, but again, Baker is solid and they trust him, and we'll kind of see that continuity between, Baker and the rest of the coaching staff, really much with Corey Raymond, because that secondary was awful. It was god-awful last year. Yeah. And to give LSU a break, they had a lot of injuries. And they barely had any depth to kind of replace it. They had to literally bring on walk-ons to start for them. But LSU just has a lot of question marks. I mean, really, with the exception of their offensive line, yes, they got a lot of talent in receiver. But, we've seen when Jaden Daniels first got there, they weren't great. You have Malik Neighbors, and then Brian Thomas was, he was an emerging talent, but he didn't come on until last season. So what's really going to happen there? Like Ty said, the running back position, who's going to be your best running back? Josh Williams, who's going to be more, I think, a 6-year player. I mean, I don't know how it's really going to work out. Defensively, I don't know how you're going to be defensively. You got to replace Mason Smith, Mekhi Wingo. I mean, your best defensive starter right now is Jacobian Gulleroy. Like, that's your best defensive lineman right now returning. So I don't know how that's going to be. Yes, you got some young talent that are 4 and 5 stars. I don't know that, and Bo Davis can develop. Bo Davis can develop, but it takes time, right? He didn't immediately go to Texas, and then all of a sudden they just became a juggernaut first year. It took some time in order for them to really become a very great defensive unit with Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy and the rest of those guys that were there. So I don't know. LSU, honestly, I think Missouri is better than them. I think Ole Miss should be ahead of them. I would probably have them 6th or 7th right now, honestly, until they can kind of prove me wrong. Otherwise, again, Brian, this is a transitional year. In a way, this is a rebuild year, right? I know a lot of LSU fans are thinking that this is a retooling year. This is really a rebuilding year. When you have to fire the entire coaching staff, Jaden Daniels is gone, Neighbors is gone, Brian Thomas is gone, Mekhi Wingo's gone, Mason Smith is gone. When all those dudes are gone, and that's you're rebuilding. So we'll see what happens with LSU. Again, their schedule's not that difficult. It's not like an Oklahoma or a Florida sort of case. But I'm not going to sit up there. Again, they had them 4th. I even saw some polls where they had them where they were 2nd, based off of LSU. Nick Saban, his 3rd year national champion. Les Miles won a national champion young. Ed Orgeron won a national champion young. So they kind of make that same projection with Brian Kelly. I don't think that's going to happen this year, especially with how loaded the SEC is going to be in terms of bringing Texas and Oklahoma onto the stage. So that's what I think. I think LSU is rebuilding. I don't think that this is going to be more of a retooling year, but I can see the future when Brian Kelly, he's finally one last thing I'll give him credit for. He's finally focusing on in-state recruiting. Because when he first got through those first 2 years, he branched out. He tried to focus on the Midwest. He focused on the Northeast. He focused on the recruiting. He focused on the areas that Notre Dame was really good in, especially in Georgia, right? He focused around that lower Atlanta area where he got Kyle Hamilton from. But if you're gonna ignore your own state, when you have University Lab, you have not the other lab, but there's like 3 schools in Baton Rouge alone where you can literally ride a hoverboard to campus, and the amount of talent that's coming from those schools is ridiculous. You ignored a Mike, right? You ignored St. John Curtis. Like, you ignored all these schools and focused elsewhere. You saw the result. They're not really as good as they used to. And even then, the talent, like a Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, all those kids came from Louisiana, right? So I'm very interested to kind of see what happens with Brian Kelly. Again, this is this class coming in. This is the first class where he truly focused on the state. So we'll kind of see how that kind of goes on too. But again, they're getting better. They haven't arrived yet, but they're getting better.
Merrill, before I pass it to you, want to give some shout outs. Quentin with the $2 saying oh boy. That's how you know we've been talking for a while. I almost just sent that word into another dimension. All for $2, hook 'em. Quentin, as always, my man, happy you're in here. Then we have Lisa Fitzhugh saying, just jumped on 20 minutes ago after work and love this amazing.
There it is.
Yep. The panel loves this panel.
This amazing panel / dialogue, and we'll watch the whole thing late night. As always, roll tide, Lisa. At least I can get that right, dear God. Man, that's unfortunate. Hey, and I'll tell you what, someone who I'm happy, shout out Nino, I'm happy LSU didn't get is that dude out at Colorado who is about to light it up, and God bless any cornerback that has to cover him. Right? You already know who I'm talking about. Right?
Man. My little cousin, O. Miller.
Amarian Miller is Nino's cousin, and I'm going to tell y'all this
cool,
right
man.
now.
Yeah,
that kid's going to be a dog. A dog.
Yeah, he's dope, man.
Merrill, passing it to you, my man.
Yeah, I think we look at it, and Jay, just to hit on that, I think, with Kelly not recruiting for the longest time in Louisiana, we all know the reason was because of Nick Saban. He was the stealer of the LSU recruits forever, man. Everyone knows he owned the state of Louisiana with for the longest time in recruiting. So I think, and you're seeing that, I think, right now with him being gone, you're seeing everybody be like, oh, thank God. Now we can go in and get the recruits we want to get. Thank you, God. We can finally own our state again. You know what I'm saying? It's very interesting seeing him bounce and just seeing the recruiting trails all flip. back to normal almost, right? But again, like we look at this and we look at the season and overall, I just, I think, I don't know. Yeah, I'm excited to see like how these all play out, right? And I think with LSU being ranked where they're ranked, it's hard because LSU, I think they go maybe based on traditional, like how they typically end up within the league, right? And what they've done. And you don't want to say you want to rank a team on the past and what they've done in the past. But at the same time, there seems to be a little bit of like almost there's these 4 teams that always sit within the top 4. And you see it. Now that Texas is in the SEC, I think everyone's right. You're going to see Texas sit within that top 4 consistently. I mean, Sarkisian also has the depth, and it's fair to say I would put them at number 2, right? And Georgia at 1. I think that's fair. But with LSU sitting, what were you guys saying? Number 4, correct?
Yeah.
That's where they were at right now.
Yeah.
I don't see. I would almost put Missouri at 4. Then I'd put Bama. And for everyone's going to get pissed off at me when I say Bama right now. But guess what? The only reason is because if we're looking at these rankings from a standpoint of what's continuing, what's new, the players coming in, the players on the field, right? There's so many different things to look at these rankings. We're not saying if we play them in a game right now, this is who and who. It's based on Alabama as a whole new staff. That's why.
Yeah.
In the end of the day, that's the only reason. Are they still going to kick ass? I really think so. I mean, like I said, winners win, and they got a winner in the coach. But I do think based on the rankings, I would put Missouri ahead of LSU. And I throw LSU right behind Bama. Again, he just revamped his whole staff, and what he's lost in Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors alone is a huge production. And I don't know if they're going to necessarily get that back from a standpoint.
Shout out to Alexa for the 199. And you know what's funny, Merrill? Coach Sean and I talked about this. I would do the same thing. I think they have the wrong Tigers. If we must, let's just play the hypothetical where we must leave Bama at 5. Okay, we must do that. They got the wrong Tigers at 4. Yeah. I mean, Missouri returns Brady Cook. They have to replace Cody Schrader. They have to replace those 2 cornerbacks. They got Luther Burden. Okay, they pulled Williams Winery. Okay. And I don't know when he's going to be a dude, but he is one of the top prospects in the nation. So I'm very interested in that. Thank you for the 199, Alexa. Now, Hayes, I'm going to ask you a little bit different of a question because we've been having this conversation and almost debate. Who's got a tougher schedule in your mind, OU or Florida?
Florida, for sure. I think Florida might have the toughest schedule in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Is it the toughest schedule you've ever seen? Because I am of the mindset, Hayes, and I want to get your thought on this. If they win a bowl game, build a statue of Napier outside. No questions asked. Build a statue.
Yeah, no doubt. That's the toughest schedule I've ever seen.
Facts.
Yeah. It's rough, man. Listen, OU, y'all got a tough one. Y'all got a really rough schedule, but Florida's, I think, preseason rankings, which, listen, we can debate the validity of preseason rankings all we want, but preseason rankings, I think they go on a stretch of 7 straight ranked opponents.
Yep.
That's ridiculous. So I really wanted to hear your insight there, Hayes, but Nino, round us out, my man. Talk to us. Am I tripping about LSU?
I don't know, but man, look, I'm checking out these comments. I'm getting cooked by my boy Chicken 1515. Come on, Chicken, man. Bro. You got to save me some, man. I ain't gonna never put on my OU stuff. Come on, Chicken.
Hey, but you do have some Bama fans like Antoine saying just gave a subscribe to Nino's channel, even though I see all that burnt orange, we'll give it a chance. And then someone says Matt Farms from upstate New York, where you guys know I love me some upstate New York. Yeah. He says he may be a closet Bama fan. Now, there is an interesting connection there, Matt Farm. He's not. I've tried, but I'm not the only one that's tried in his life. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, I got a wife that's from Bama, 2 sister-in-laws that graduated from Bama, 2 nieces that graduated from Bama, and they put me on these damn group texts, and I'm like the only Longhorn. And so, dude, you should have seen Texas versus Bama last year. I'm in a 20-person group text, and it's roll tide, we're going to whip your ass. We're going to do this, don't do that. And after Texas won, I just simply replied, hook 'em. I didn't get any reply. But anyways, but look, man, LSU, them being number 4 in the country, I think that's a bit high.
Well,
But-
SEC, I should have prefaced that.
So the only thing that I think kind of saves them with that, they have like 3 really tough games on the schedule. They got Bama, they got Ole Miss, and they got OU. All those games are at home, right? And I think, so honestly, I think that saves them. If they pull out one of those 3 and they win the rest, you're looking at them going 10-2. Or let's say they pull out 2 of those 3. They had the potential to go 10-2 this year, and that might actually put them at 4th in the league. That's my only thing. But honestly, I'm with you. I think there are better teams out there. I love Missouri. I do. Man, Burden is the truth. He's a beast. Bama, I think it's going to be better than them this year as well. But that's my only thing is that their home schedule is very favorable for it this year.
And listen, Death Valley is one of the best places in the nation to play.
Yeah.
Not for you either.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, but because of that, it's a bucket list game for me. Right? Nino, y'all got a bucket list game this year as well. And I hope you're going to get the opportunity to go up to the big house.
Yeah.
See your horns play.
I can't this year. I wish, but I can't.
Man.
Are you going to hit that? Now, the game I wanted to go to?
Which one?
I was this close to buying tickets to the Texas-Georgia game. Here's my only hesitation. Huh?
Yeah. They got the game. They got F1 out there too. So it's going to be jam-packed, dude.
Whoa.
Austin is a great place, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But Austin's infrastructure wasn't built for how big they are now. Plus you add Texas-Georgia. Plus you add F1. It's going to be miserable.
It's going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't have a reason not to go because my parents are still in Austin. Right. So I have a place to stay. But it's just I don't want to deal with all that traffic at that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be stupid, man. I ready to watch from home this year.
Ladies,
There's nothing better at screaming at your TV from home.
Yeah, you're right there. And let me tell you what. And my wife, God bless her soul, she sits next to me, and I'll be watching like, oh, it was the worst when Bill O'Brien was there. I would be screaming, and she'd be scratching my back. It's okay, honey. It's okay. They have Bryce Young. It's okay. I mean, she was like talking me off the ledge. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been going for an hour and 41 minutes. I cannot thank you all enough for tuning in. I cannot thank the panel enough for being here. This is the first stream we've done since January 9th, and it has been a great time. Y'all already know what time it is. It's where we go around the table, and everybody plugs up what they do, where you can find them. Hayes, you graced us with your time this evening. Unbelievable insight into recruiting, the transfer portal. We'll start with you. I don't think that, listen, if they don't know where to find you, quite frankly, that's absurd. But where can they find you, my man?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at HayesFawcett3. I appreciate y'all having me on again. Thank you so much.
Hayes, I'm telling you, man, we need to duo this through the Hayes podcast. You and I, we could get it going, and Ty Hayes.
You gotta make him a graphic.
Listen, through the Hayes podcast could go crazy. I'd love to have you back on anytime, though, Hayes. Would absolutely love to have you back on.
No doubt. Thank you so much.
For sure. Jake, where can the people find you?
Hey, man. Yeah, I'm just getting back on. It's been a minute. I see all the comments in there. It's nice to see you all, too. You'll start seeing me back on Bama Football on YouTube. I'm going to start jumping back on there. And then, shoot, man, I'm open to whoever wants to do something. Just hit me up. You can hit me up on my email. But I got to get back on Twitter, too. I had a Twitter issue. So my Twitter went out, so I got to get back on there. I will post that. When we jump back on Bama Football on YouTube. It's going to be this week. I'll be back on Bama Football on YouTube. And then it's just cool to get on there. Nino, I mean, it is cool to have you on, man. It's a pleasure to meet you, too, man. It's really cool. I love that, man. Love it. So, Ty, hopefully will be on with you. And Coach Sean, Coach Jay, you guys know I'll be back on with you guys at Bama Football on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Nino, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anytime, man. I got you, bro.
I appreciate that. But, yeah, I love it. I love being on here. It's nice to be back with you guys for sure.
Nino, my man, where can they find you? You're in a lot of different places now.
I'm in a lot of different places, man. Look, man, first off, I'm in the military, so I've been really busy this past year. So I haven't been able to do what I want to because I've been in school for a year down in Alabama. I'm leaving, going back to Connecticut. So find me anywhere, man. Nick Battle, aka Nino's Corner. Find me, Twitter, Nino's Corner, Instagram, YouTube, man. It's just all the same. Just find me there. Also, Wednesdays, I'm with Ty and some friends, man, the SEC Connect. We always do that. And then in the fall, man, we will be on the Bleacher Report again, man. So look, man, lots of fun with us, man. Like college football's my thing. Love it.
Guys, we got a little bit of breaking news. Ajayi Hall is signing or walking on to UCF. UCF had a great transfer portal haul. Now they get Ajayi Hall.
Wow.
Interesting stuff there. Really excited to see what happens there. Coach Sean, where can the people find all of your great content? And if I'm not mistaken, someone just recently started a YouTube channel.
Yes, sir, I did with the help of my great friend Ty Hayes, Coach Jay, and Coach Smoot. Doing well. Just started that thing Friday, and it's already got like 190 people on there. Last video I did got like 600. This one I just did one today. So it's slowly but slowly creeping up there, man. I didn't really get in it for views. I just like talking football. You know how it is. But it's JMHO Sports Talk. Just my humble opinion. That's all it is. That's on Twitter and YouTube. JMHO Sports Talk. Much love to Ty for having me on. Shout out to Nino and Merrill and Jay and all the other coaches who've helped me. Shout out to the CSN Network, Coach Mook Network. Shout out to Bama Football on YouTube. We're about to head over there right now. And shout out to Kyle, you know what I mean, who do a great job as well. And everybody, man, the AAA family, the undefeated family, and my brother Ty for really, really plugging this thing in and giving me the opportunity to talk some football with some great guys.
Absolutely, man. Love having you here. It's always a treat when I get to do a show with you, Coach Sean, and the man who needs no introduction. If you have been on this channel at any point since 2021, the longest returning guest outside of Chris with the K, because it was actually Chris with the K and Jance were the first two at the same time. And then that kind of became a thing. And Chris with the K absolutely terrorized Jance and myself trying to send us Auburn.
Oh, he still does. Still does. He'll trouble my bills every day. Every day. He troubles my bills every day.
Did he text me? He's asking me about being in a dynasty league with him, and I'm like, when NCAA comes out, I'm like, I'll be there, but I already know. I know he's not going to pick OU. Just to mess with me, he's going to take Auburn. I know it.
You know he's going to do it.
I know it. Oh, it makes me so mad. Jance, where can the people find you and all your great content?
Twitter, Jant716. If you guys want to get in contact with me, just talk football or do some collaborations, I'm definitely down to do it. YouTube, Jant Sports. Of course, we're going to get that picking back up, stuff like that. Bama Football on YouTube is where you can definitely find me as well. And of course, for the most part, Mondays. Mondays with Ty Hayes. First of all, I'm glad that this is around again. I'm glad this is back. Great kind
it's
of
back for good, ladies and gentlemen.
Coach
Monday
Merrill,
next.
Nino, I'm so excited, and I can't wait to get Chris on. I know Chris is going to be on here one day, and I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him this season. I got something planned for him. I'm gonna get him. So, but I'm excited for the football season. It's gonna be a great one.
And before we get off of here, Nino, I want you to tell the story very quickly because Coach Sean, he's not familiar. Jake's not familiar. When OU beat Texas the first time with Caleb Lloyd, I say the first time, but I mean like in the recent saga, right, of us doing content, right, because we haven't been doing this very long. Tell them about the Revolutionary War style video he commissioned. Oh. Do you remember that?
Oh, Chris?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Look, man, I don't even want to remember it. I want to look. That's flushed out of my memory, man. But it was bad. It was bad editing too, Chris. By the way,
Coach Sean, he hired an actor to sit and write like he was in Revolutionary War style stuff, and he made a video about like OU writing a letter in terms of like general speak, like it was OU versus When we say Chris is a menace, he's a menace. I'm so happy Auburn didn't win this year because he would have sent me an Auburn flag and an Auburn mini helmet. He tried.
He has good videos.
He's hilarious.
I got him a couple times.
Yeah, he wasn't able to make it. We will have another action-packed panel next week. We will be announcing the guests throughout the week. Be sure to be on the lookout. The gentleman to my, my dyslexic ass. Let me make sure. The gentlemen to my left are about to be on Bama Football on YouTube, 7 o'clock. Be sure you go check them out. Be sure you go support them. Nino's Sport Corner does unbelievable content. Jake Merrill, former college football player, along with Coach Sean, along with Coach Jay. And like I said, I'm the pretty face on the panel, right? Everybody has to have a purpose, and I know mine. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to the 6th member of the panel tonight. Quiet, but impactful. Coach Jay, what does it do?
Spin will it do?
It spins, and it spins.